Okay.
All
So,
right.
Tracy, are the slides working? So,
They
should
are,
I?
yep, you should have control now, Giovanni.
Okay. Okay. So, yes, welcome. And so today we are going to be talking about the next steps after citizenship recognition. You know, citizenship recognition is a long process, and you finally arrived at the end, and there are a lot of bureaucratic steps you can take to make sure all of your documents are in order. And so that's what we'd like to talk about today.
Can I give me 1 second? Let me just tell everybody who you are and who we are as well. So Noi Siamo Italiani, this is a group that we formed sort of post dual citizenship Facebook group to sort of, like Giovanni said, to kind of give you what steps are happening after the fact. Giovanni Dickman is someone who has joined our group and has really amazingly put together such a great PowerPoint here. And Tracy has done a wonderful job, Tracy McCarthy, putting this together, like formatting it, making it beautiful. So just thanks to both of them. And I'm Carly Kirkpatrick, who started this particular part of the group. And we hope to do more of these informational meetings to give you more background on, you know, being a good Italian citizen and what things you would need to do that, or help you and assist you in other ways. So thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate your joining us, and look forward to your questions and hope that we can answer everything that's available. So I'm going to let Giovanni kind of lead the discussion. If there's anybody in here from the dual citizenship group that has some extra information that we're missing or whatever, because we're certainly not 100% experts. We're just passionate people who, you know, are happy to put some of this together. Let us know, raise a hand, and we will, you know, give you the floor to kind of add to that or whatever information you've got for us. And I believe there's a Q&A at the end, right, Giovanni? You've got that built in,
Yes.
right? So perfect. So cool. Then I'm going to mute myself too. I'll let Giovanni take it away from here. So thanks, guys.
Oh. Where are we? Here we go. Okay. So yeah, so we're not we're definitely not can we go back a slide? Yeah, okay. We're definitely not lawyers here. And this is not legal advice. This is just from things that we've learned about Italian citizenship and after our recognition. So we'd like to point out that. So you received your recognition letter from the Italian consulate. Occasionally it's in Italian, occasionally it's in English. It depends on your consulate. And usually you'll receive this by email. And it'll say that you have been recognized as an Italian citizen. All your works have paid off. And it also communicates that you have been registered in AIRE, which is the anagrafe for Italians residing abroad. And it says that you are registered in that with both your consulate and your comune in Italy. And the letter also indicates that your vital records are being sent to Italy for your transcription. And it is important to look on your recognition letter to make sure that everyone is listed that was on your application, or that they received their own. I had, unfortunately, that experience where my name was not on the recognition letter, but my father's was. So just make sure that your name is on there so that all of your paperwork is being filed. And so, as I said before, with your information will be registered into AIRE. It is the Anagrafe Italiani Residenti all'Estero, which is the registry of Italian citizens residing abroad. This is similar to the concept of Anagrafe in Italy, in which your residence is recorded in the comune where you live. So if you're a jure sanguinis person, you have been recognized by the consulate, it will be indicated in your registration letter. But important for 1948 cases, you must register an AIRE unless your lawyer has already arranged for it. But usually you will not already be registered in AIRE when you receive the court order. It'll include your address, and you need to change your AIRE registration if your address changes, and you need to update the records to make sure any births, marriages, divorces, and deaths are all recorded in IRE for any Italian citizen. And the IRE allows you to receive your voting materials. It is also the registration to the voting roll, the electoral list. So your passport, this is the most exciting part, and we all have our pictures with our passports, our Italian passports from the consulate. But you must be registered in IRE to get your passport. And yes, you have to be recognized, and your records have to be registered in Italy to get the passport. And you can book this through the Prenota portal with your consulate. You can book an appointment. Sometimes they fill up. Some consulates might have one. You can get an appointment for the same week, whereas the others might require you to wait a couple months. It really just depends on the time of year. But you'll need the application form, your photos, a money order. Also, many consulates also have a photo booth. And for example, the Philadelphia consulate has a photo booth right now because of the pandemic. I think it's closed. But there are specific photo sizes that are often different from the American passport photos. So be sure to look out for that.
Real quick, I can chime in on the photos. Typically, I think people have had good luck at Walgreens stores. They do allow you to select a size. I know for mine, when I went, the only option that I could pick that would be close was France, and that was acceptable. I've heard that some Walgreens do even have an Italian option. So, you know, you can pay attention. And if anybody, when we get later on, people can chime in and say if there's some other spots that you found to be helpful as well.
And you'll need the copy of your driver's license. Oh, and back to the money order. It is expensive for your Italian passport. I think it's usually between 130 and 150 dollars. It's not cheap, but totally worth it in my opinion. You'll need proof of stay in your country of residence, that you're not an illegal immigrant. So you'll need either your U.S. or your U.S. passport. If you're in the U.S. under a green card, you'll need that. And one important thing is the consent form. You'll need this consent form signed by the minor child's parent. If you have children, that will need to be signed for you to get your passport and the children. So I do know that this is hard for people who are divorced and maybe has a spouse who would not want to sign that. It is something that the consulates do require for both you and your minor children. So that is important to remember. There is the possibility of going to an honorary consulate to get your passport. I know I live in the Philadelphia jurisdiction, and there are many honorary consulates which you can call and make an appointment there. They, of course, cannot process the passport there themselves. They have to mail the paperwork from the honorary consulate to the main consulate, and then they'll mail the passport back to you. But they can do the fingerprints there because you have to have your fingerprints now for an Italian passport. Okay, so this is the...
Say one thing with the Charlotte consulate. That's where I had only taking emergency in Charlotte.
Oh, yes, yes. The honorary consulate in Charlotte. Yes, there's one in Virginia Beach. There are many consulates, but often, at least in my experience, it was hard to get an appointment with the honorary consulate. But you can definitely see it, because I know people live very far from consulates. You might have to fly to get to your consulate normally. So it's a great option. So this is the Codice Fiscale, your Italian tax ID. It's almost like a social security card in America. And you don't even need a citizen to get your Codice Fiscale. You can get this before your recognition, even if you want to do business in Italy. But you need it to open a bank account, attend university, pay taxes, study at university, buy property. There are many uses for this tax ID, and it's very important. And you can follow the instructions on your consulate's website and submit the forms. It seems that each consulate has their own form, and you can submit that to your consulate, usually by mail or email. And you usually do not get a physical card, at least in the US, from what I've heard. You will just get a certificate which has your Codice Fiscale number, and you can use that for all official purposes in Italy. It's very important. Names. In Italy, there are no maiden names. Excuse me, there are no married names. You have to use your maiden name in Italy. For women, that will be the name on your passport will also be the name on your American birth certificate. So your married name will not appear on your passport. You can often request at the consulate to get your married name put on a different page of your passport. I believe it's page 4 or something. However, you will have different names in your passport, and your name will appear exactly as it is on your birth certificate. Now for the Certificato di Cittadinanza, the certificate of citizenship. This is a less commonly known document, and it usually costs around 11 euros. And you can send a letter to your consulate requesting this, just with the money order and your recognition letter, and a few copies. And this could be an alternative, perhaps, if you live far from your consulate and you can't get there to get your passport for a long time, or maybe you think about the pandemic and you think, oh, I won't be going to Italy for a long time. Why would I get a passport and not use it? Or maybe you have a problem with your with getting the consent form for your children, but you still want a document certifying that you're an Italian citizen. This is certainly an option. Or you can just hang it on the wall after your efforts. I think that's something that I've wanted to do because it's just so exciting. Now for vital records. In Italy, all of your documents will be registered at the comune. So your marriage, your birth certificate will all be sent from the consulate where you applied for your citizenship recognition to the comune. So my comune is in Sicily. It is where my great-grandfather was born, and they transcribed my American birth certificate to the Italian format. And it's wonderful because it's multilingual. You can use it throughout Europe. And you can usually request it using the same form that you requested your own ancestors' birth certificate. Just send a request, usually by email, to the comune. If they don't respond by email, you can always send by snail mail, or I've called them, called the consulate before, not the consulate, the comune, when they did not answer my email, and they were able to email me back a copy. I'm still waiting for the actual copy. I don't know if they're willing to send it to me, but I got the digital copy from them, and it will have, where you were born, your name, your parents' names, etc., your birth date. And it's very important to show that your birth was registered in Italy and it's in your Italian citizenship. Okay, now for the Cartodentita. This is a much cheaper alternative to a passport, but however, it is unavailable from consulates right now in the US. We are hoping that eventually the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will bring the Cartodentita to to the consulates in the United States. But however, right now it's only available in Europe. You can actually get this electronic version. It's a small wallet card from the consulates in Europe, and you can use it for various online services in Italy. But you can get the paper version. Here on the right, we see this paper version of the card. And if you're registered in AIRE with your comune and the consulate, you can get this card by going to your comune in Italy. I think it costs about $5, and you submit your pictures, and they will give you this piece of paper. It's actually kind of big. It doesn't exactly fit in your wallet, but it's an ID that shows that you are an Italian citizen. And Carly, you can talk about the FastID, the online
Sure.
consular services site.
Yeah, so I know I see a couple friends in here who have a little bit more information on this, so I'm hoping they'll chime in if they would like to. They're more than welcome to. So FastID or it is one of the newer
Go
online
away.
one of the newer online consular service sites here that has become available. Now, I signed up for it recently and found that, as I was talking to actually Jenny before, that sometimes the consulate needs to attach you to your when you apply to get into this program. So I have not been cleared yet by the consulate, so I can't actually access any of my information. But kind of scouting through this site, I didn't put a note on here. It says, note that upon registration, your corresponding consulate will need to connect your identity with the account in order for you to access the services. And it does not happen automatically. Apparently it can take a couple weeks. I'm sort of in that situation myself. FastID allows you to access to consular services, such as registering your IRE if you need to, or changing your IRE address if you're in the same consulate. It also will allow users to request registration of certificates. And then also, I kind of surfed the site a little bit more. It can direct you as a citizen to resources for getting help from consulates on situations abroad, such as if you had an accident in an additional country somewhere and you needed assistance from the consulate. This would be a site that you could consult in order to get assistance from them. And then also there's some access to the Italian community, including cultural activities. And then they even have links for like language classes that are being offered by the consulates in your area. So I think overall, it can be a good resource once you can get into it. Those of you that have gotten in, if you want to chime in and tell us a little bit more, I would love to hear it. Anybody? No?
Yeah, Carly, I can
Sure.
speak to that just really quickly.
Fabulous.
And to be honest, I don't remember exactly the steps that I went through, so I don't know that I can be incredibly helpful. But yeah, the consulate does need to link your IRE to your FastID account. So you can have, your FastID account set up, and it might show that you're not enrolled at IRE. You might really be. There's actually a very good chance that you are, but the systems don't recognize each other automatically. So if you find that's a problem, it's probably best to just shoot an email to the consulate to ask them to do that. I don't know that they have someone, sitting there constantly monitoring and linking everything. So if it's important for you to have that, just send them an email and hopefully they'll take care of it. Mine, I think, was taken care of in a couple days.
I can add that in Philadelphia, they won't do that. They don't know what connecting means. The last email response I got from them 2 days ago was try deleting your account and creating a new one.
Okay, so maybe it's new enough that the consulates don't have enough know-how with it. I've got my citizenship about 5 or 6 years ago, and I've only just joined this too. So I know it's been around maybe a year, maybe two. I'm not sure. So it might still be new enough that not everybody knows. And I remember reading your story, Ray, about that too. Yeah. So
my registration in IRA predates FastID by probably a decade. So I'm not surprised that it's not connected, but for them to say we can't connect it or we don't know what's going on here, that was a little frustrating. So
absolutely. So yeah, so hopefully as this resource grows and and their abilities to understand how to use it are at least we shouldn't feel so bad on our end if we don't understand everything about it, because clearly they're still struggling with it as well. So yeah, so hopefully we'll get there, and then it might be something that we can encourage people or the consulates or somehow when we get down the road here to be able to kind of make sure that this is working. Now, is it correct that you can request like certificates and stuff too, like your birth certificate and things through this, or no? I was trying to figure that out if anybody knew offhand.
I don't think that you can
Okay.
within the US. And
Okay.
I think it might be possible in Italy if you're requesting directly from the community. Don't hold me to that one, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. So, like I said, go ahead.
One thing that it might be able to request, I remember when I looked on FastIT a year ago, and that's when it was not actually an option in the Philadelphia consulate jurisdiction. There is an IRE certificate that you can get. My comune actually also gave me an IRE certificate. It just said my name, my birth date, and that I'm registered in IRE, and that my birth certificate was transcribed. And so maybe that's one thing. I think the consulate can also provide an IRE certificate as well as the comune. And maybe it would FastIT has that capability or is going to have that capability in the future.
Well, and hopefully what we can hope that down the road is if they start offering things like Cartodentita or some of these other things, that FastIT will be a service that we can use to improve some of these additional services that we would like to get from them. So we'll see if that turns out to be the case or not. So, cool. All right. I'll give it back to Giovanni to wrap us up here.
Yes, so that's it. What questions do we have? I saw one come in here on the chat. Let me see if I can access that. The chat feature is gone.
If you put, if the chat's at the bottom, I have it here. Says, do you recommend getting both the Italian passport and the Cartodentita, or is the passport all you need to receive services or / prove identity when in Italy?
Right. So the passport is considered a documento di identità, a document of identity, as well as the Cartodentita. You can use either. In Italy, they are considered essentially equal. But I think that well, you have to be living in Italy to even get the Cartodentita, or at least have visited your comune in Italy to get the paper version. So so that's one thing. Logistically, for most people, it's probably hard to get the Cartodentita. But it is a lot easier to carry around as compared to carrying your passport, which is, you know, you don't want to damage your passport when you're walking around the streets, and you know, what happens if you get robbed or something. You have to, if there's pickpocketer, you don't want to have to replace your passport, and that's very expensive. But from a legal standpoint, they hold essentially the same value.
Yeah, feel free to verbally ask questions too if you guys want. If there's something burning question you have, you can type it in the chat. I've got the chat open here, so you can type it in the chat. Let's see.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Lorraine, and then I'll hit up Annette's on here when you're done.
Thanks. So my question, I'm not sure how relevant it is based on Ray's comments about the Philadelphia consulate and FastIT. So I'm in the Philadelphia jurisdiction, and I wasn't sure if you needed to get your passport first and upload that when you're creating your FastIT account, or is that not necessary?
Okay.
Carly, did you have to upload your passport when you?
I did not, but see, because when I went in there too, it just told me that I wasn't registered in IRE, which I know is not true because I have been for years. But I did not load anything up at this point in time because my thought process was if the consulate was going to connect me, I didn't want to like throw the system off by putting in a bunch of paperwork that they would be like, why did you do this? I was just, I think fear of the consulate and be like, why did you do this? Now you've ruined everything. So I was like, I'll just wait. So I think if you're just registering for the first time, or if you're changing a registration, you would have to upload. I know somebody was just telling me that they did, and it took them like 2 hours to upload all the documents that were required to register in IRE. And they found it pretty frustrating too. So I think that is a process if you haven't done it before. But yeah, so again, it's new to me as well. So I'm afraid I don't have the best answer for that one. If that didn't help, I'm sorry. So
I may be wrong, but I
go ahead.
do it in here. I believe that if you've just been recognized, that you don't have to submit the paperwork for the RA in FastID. And I could be totally wrong, because one of the other groups, because there were questions about that, and they said that eventually your commune will register you in RA if they haven't done so, and so not to repeat the paperwork that is listed in there. That in FastID is if you just moved here from Italy, and now you have to register yourself abroad, not if you're currently here and you just got recognized. Now, again, I might be wrong, but that's the way I understand it. Right. I did sign up for FastID, but my RA information doesn't show up there yet. So I'm going to do as you all suggested, and ask my consulate if that's something they need to connect for me. So again, I think it's it may work the other way. Like I said, the other group said don't resubmit your paperwork in RA because your consulate and your commune is supposed to do that for you if you've just been recognized.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathleen, because I think that's kind of, I think, what we're looking for there. Real quick, Elizabeth had a raised hand, and then I'll hit a question. I'm going to try to alternate between raised hands and questions in the chat. So Elizabeth, you go ahead with your question.
Great, thank you. And thank you for starting this group. This is very, very helpful. I had a couple of different experiences with registering for FastID because I was helping my brother through the process. So my information came up. I remember I did have to upload my driver's license. Okay. And then all my information was synced. My brother's information did not work as smoothly. And so I went through the actual registration process for error, and then noticed actually that there was a weird formatting glitch within FastID where the formatting for the birth date reverts to American on the confirmation page, the American formatting. So I wrote them in regard to that concern, and they said, and they emailed me back the next day and said, oh, he's already in, don't worry about it. So it was, they caught that as a duplicate, just as an aside. So, you know, it can kind of work both ways. It can go easily, or they might catch it if it's a duplicate and then tell you. And then all his FastID information populated right away. So they plugged it in right away. So my question actually is, now that I'm looking at my SHADA and I do have a passport appointment in July, the ARA data, I'm confused about who populates that to Scredo.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. So I don't know if anybody has. Brian might be more skilled on that one. I don't know if you know, Brian, but
yeah, the IRA information is entered by the Comune. So when you're first recognized, I think it was Lorraine who said this, the consulate will send your birth and marriage and all that information to the Comune, and they are the ones who transcribe your records. It is that process of transcribing your information that actually puts you in ARE. So when they're transcribing you, they have to enter your address. And when they enter your foreign address, that automatically puts you in ARE. So you're there. Now, FastID is something completely separate. FastID is a services portal. So it allows you to access certain electronic services online. FastID is not IATE. It is just a portal for services. Now, if it's set up correctly, yes, it should be linked so that you can see your ARE information, but there's no need to have FastID unless you actually need certain online services. Like if you wanted to update your ARE, you could set up an account in FastID, and even if it's not connected to your ARE information, you could submit an ARE request. If you're moving, for example, and you want to submit your new address, you can upload all the information into FastID, and the consulate will receive it, and they should process it that way, unless you want to do it old school and just email it to them. But you can do it through FastID, even if your account is not connected to your ARE information. It will still go to the consulate when you upload that information.
Thank you, Brian. So is there a separate web page where I actually check ARE directly?
No. So
Okay.
that was the whole purpose behind FastID, was to, well, among other things, to give you access to that information. The only other way you have to verify your ARE information is either by contacting the consulate or contacting your comune directly. I found personally my comune is very responsive and very helpful. You know, for example, when I was first registered, we had some issues, like my brothers were recognized with me, and one of their spouses' names was incorrect. So what I did is I just contacted the comune, and they were like, "Oh yeah, no problem. You know, we'll update that for you." And actually, when I finally went in person after I was recognized to my comune, they actually let me step behind the counter and look over their shoulder at the computer and read everything. And we fixed a whole bunch of errors. There were so many like typos and things like that. We just did it right there on the spot, and they were really good about it. But yeah, it's the comune who does it, and they and the consulates are the only ones who can see it unless you're connected in FastID.
Okay, so brief recap. If everything's in FastID, that means I'm in ARE. Okay, and to acquire the Scredo demarcation, I would probably need to email the comune.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that Scredo demarcation thing, so.
Yeah, it's one of the at least in San Francisco, it's one of the stipulations before, although I've heard it's been interpreted very loosely, that they want to see for within FastID, they want to see the registration with AIR as Scredo notation there. And then I don't have the city or town of AIR registration reflected within FastID either. So I was just trying to untangle. It's, you know, I said in a post online, it's as clear as mud, you know, what the left hand and the right hand and who's shaking hands. And
right. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, thanks so much, Brian, too, for, if I could just say thanks to Brian and Jenny, and if I'm missing anybody else, they are from the dual citizenship page, which birthed this one. So thank you guys for popping in here to give us some extra information.
You're welcome. Just to piggyback on that last comment, I think what you're saying is escrito. That means you're inscribed. That means the comune has transcribed your records. I think that's what you might be asking.
Yes, that is my question.
Okay, yeah. And that doesn't have anything to do with FastID. It actually doesn't necessarily have anything to do with ARE. It just means that the comune has registered your birth, so they have a record of you. So as long as they've done that, that's all you need to get a passport at most consulates. Now, it's very helpful if you appear correctly in ARE, because the consulate needs to check that to verify that you're in there. And if the comune has done everything correctly when they transcribed you, escrito, you should be in there, regardless of FastID. FastID is a totally separate thing.
Got it. Okay, that's actually better news. Thank you.
Sure.
Good. All right, we'll pop over to the chat here. I'll just kind of alternate. Annette had a question. Do you know if I need to list a marriage, then divorce in my civic records? I was already divorced before applying for citizenship.
Yes, you absolutely need to update your stato civile. Every major event, marriage, birth, divorce, and death. And what you'll need to do is, if you got divorced, is get your divorce decree, and a lot of consulates will require a no appeal certificate for that divorce, and probably the divorce certificate too. Everything apostilled and translated, and you can send it off to your consulate, and your consulate can take care of that. They'll update your file, and then they'll send that off to your comune for registration. But you absolutely, yes, need to do that.
All right, Ray.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Ray, you had a question?
Yeah, maybe a comment. One contribution I can make, which I've written about on the other group, in regards to the parental consent for passport. So you can request, if you have minor children and you want your own passport, you can request that the consulate send a letter to the ex-spouse. in which the ex-spouse must give valid reasons why it should be denied. So the consulate will stand by its citizens, and spite is not a reason to deny someone a passport. And I was successful in that. So it's not the end of the road for someone that is entitled to a passport but can't get it because the ex-spouse is unwilling.
Great information. Ray.
So they'll mail a letter saying you have 30 days to present us with some reason why we should not issue the passport.
Right, and so just being divorced is not an issue for them to deny you a passport, because
That's right.
I think that's the thing that we found. I mean, I guess it's not interesting. It might happen the same thing in the U.S. with passports, but like they don't want I'm married, but I even so still had to have the notary because my spouse is not an Italian citizen. So therefore, in order for me to get a passport, even though I have a kid and everything, I had to have that permission as well, which was a little strange for me, but I kind of understood where they were coming from. You know, okay, you don't want to have somebody running off with the one child, the parent and child are the citizens, the other one's not, and leaving them in the dust. But yeah, but it's good that there is a recourse for that, because I was thinking that too, like, well, what if they refused? Then so then I can't have a passport because you won't let the kid have yeah. So that's great news to people, I think, to have. So thank you for that. Scott was asking, what documents do people need to work in Europe? Is there a similar I-9 process like in the US? My understanding is, and in all the years I've kind of looked into that, is that generally, as long as you have your passport or your Cartodentita, like either of those would be sufficient. But I mean, maybe somebody else can chime in if they've had personal experience with this.
So the process will vary by the country. Each EU member state is different in this process, but it is not too bad from everything I've read and researched. I will insert the link here, and you can go to the European Union's website about documents and formalities for moving to any EU country, and specifically for EU citizens, and it'll put you in contact with the authorities and the steps to do that. But it does depend on the country. For example, in Poland or Slovakia, for example, you're going to have to submit a form with an immigration office. Whereas in Germany, you can just go to your town hall, like any German citizen would. You're on this, since you're an EU citizen, you're on the same level with them. You'll go there and just register your residence with a simple form. And legally, it should not cost more than the price of getting an identity card in that EU country. So it is very cheap. You might have to prove you'll have your Italian passport or Cartodentita, and you might have to prove your status. For example, as a student, you might have to provide a proof that you are registered as a student, or proof that you can support yourself, because they don't want anybody who can't support themselves in that country. But you even have the right to look for work for a couple months in that country, as long as you can support yourself during that time. So it's not too bad of a process, and I hope that portal will help you find more information about that.
Great.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I guess the one question that I did have is, when you are in another country that's not Italy, I'm assuming, like here, where you're using your social security number, would you still be using the Italian Code Fiscale thing if I'm in, I'll pick a country, Poland?
Poland, yeah. No, that's a good question. I heard you do need it. Is that right, Giovanni?
Well, I know specifically Poland and Croatia and many other countries, they will still issue you a tax ID of their country, and sometimes you usually do not need to be a citizen to get that number. Of course, it depends on the country a little bit, but I know in Poland, Croatia, you just have to ask for it to get that country specific tax ID number. But I know that I recently tried to apply for a bank account in Germany, and I needed my Codice Fiscale as well as my social security number because I did not have the German equivalent.
So good.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for a great question. Let's see. Nicole says, after recognition, do all actions need to continue to take place through that consulate? I'll be recognized through Chicago. If I live elsewhere after that, do I still work with Chicago? Well, unless you move out of their jurisdiction. So if you were to move out of Chicago's jurisdiction, let's say you move to LA, well, then LA will be your new consulate. You'll have to register an IRA through them. And then all of your actions would take place through there. Or as Giovanni had mentioned earlier, they have sort of those honorary consulates that might be able to do some of the services that you need, where you don't have to travel to, you know, the main city. If they've got one, you know, if you're in San Diego and they have an honorary one there, then you don't have to go all the way to the one in LA. So if I answered that right, if anybody else has any tips or chime in there, feel free.
And you are required to, I believe, by 90 days of changing your address, even if it's within the consulate's jurisdiction, you're required to update your IRA within 90 days, unless your stay at that residence will last less than 1 year. There are a couple exceptions, like if you're military, or there are a few, but generally you need to update your address in IRA within 90 days of moving to that address, new address.
Hopefully that helps. I've got one here. Let's see. I tried to get a paper ID, but since they're giving out the plastic ones with chips, they're not giving out the paper ones anymore. Anybody?
Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't been over there yet to do that prior to the process. So I don't know if anybody has, can speak to that with it. But I mean, I would guess at some point they might be phasing those paper ones out. I'll let Brian just pop in. I'll let him answer.
Maybe their typewriter's broken. They literally create them old school. So when I got mine, it was literally on a word processor that the guy was creating it. So they may just not have the materials to make them anymore at your commune. They're supposed to, because there's not a way for a non-EU resident to get a plastic card at this point. You have to be a resident of at least the EU. If you're somewhere else in the EU, you just get it through your embassy. But yeah, if you live abroad, you're supposed to be able to get one. There's not a way to get the plastic one if you live abroad.
So cool. And then they did note on here too, someone said that if you're registering your divorce, make sure your divorce translation is certified. I believe you might have to have the apostille on that too. Does it have to be notarized and apostilled as well? So yeah.
I'll just mention too, if you have the Cartodentita, the one with the chip, you can travel within the EU solely based on that document. You don't even need your passport, at least in Schengen.
Oh, right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So good. Let's see here. Another question. Making sure after we receive the passport, get the Codice Fiscale online to open up a bank account in Italy. Then when traveling to Italy, go to the Comune and get a Carta D'Identità and vital records. Yeah, that would be, I mean, that would be sort of a good order to do it. And if you're, you know, going over there a little bit later, do the passport first. Codice Fiscale, you can get, like we were saying, online. I think Chicago processed mine in 2 weeks. I did it a couple weeks ago. So, and that was just via email with a copy of my Italian passport and the form they had to fill out. And then, yeah, when you go to the town, you can get the vital records from the town. You can have, you know, people who procure them get them. The only thing I want to find out more about, and I think that, you know, we can always save that for another discussion, is getting one of those PEC emails, those PEC emails, and where to do that and what I need to do that. That was something, because I think then you can email them directly and have them email you your documents instead of having to necessarily go in to get them or whatever. So at some point, I'd like to learn more about that process as well. Or if anybody knows how I go about that, what do I need to get the PEC email? That's this thing.
Right. So one quick thing is about the bank account. You usually cannot get the bank account unless you are registered in as a resident in Italy. You often need to be resident there. Otherwise, there are some possibilities to go with a foreign address, but you often need a power of attorney. So that's one important thing to know. But as for the PEC email addresses, there are some service providers that offer them for as a possibility. However, not all of them offer on their online form the ability to enter your foreign address or your non-Italian cell phone number, because I think the cell phone, you often need a cell phone to get the SMS from them to verify your account. And I tried to get one, and it required me to have an Italian cell phone number. So I kind of stopped that. But I think there are some, you just have to dig for them.
Gotcha. If anybody else knows, feel free to chime in. So otherwise, maybe we'll put that up one day as a discussion point. We can kind of talk about it. So great. Cool. Anything else we can answer for you today? Hopefully we've provided you with some information that was helpful. And yeah, I mean, we're happy to answer anything else while we're here. Otherwise, we can save them for another day as well. So
I'll just throw out a couple of comments. So lots of good questions about how to get these various things, you know, your passport, your identity card, your vital records. You know, just a word of advice, unless you really want them as vanity pieces, you don't need them until you need them.
right.
Once you're recognized as a citizen, you're a citizen. You don't even need a document to prove that you're a citizen until you need one, right? That makes sense. So, you know, if you have plans to travel into Europe, you don't even need an Italian passport unless you're going to stay beyond what your US passport allows. So your US passport allows you access to the Schengen zone, which is generally the EU. It's the borders are a little bit fuzzy, but you can stay for up to 90 days within any 6-month period. So unless you're going to stay beyond that, you don't need an Italian passport. You can go on your US passport. It's not illegal. It's a valid passport. It has a visa attached to it for the Schengen zone of up to 90 days. If you want to stay longer, I would recommend you get your Italian passport. You can still travel to Italy on your US passport, and you can stay beyond 90 days, but the airline might give you trouble. If you don't have a return flight, they may not allow you to travel because they're responsible for ensuring that you have the credentials to stay where you're going. So in those cases, you want to have at least your Italian passport. Do you need an Italian ID card? Probably not. Unless you're going to be living in Italy, you really don't need one. There is the convenience issue of being able to use it to travel, like another person said, within the EU zone. But in that case, if you've come from the US, you probably already have your passport anyway, so you can just use your passport. Your birth certificate, it's good to get it at first just to ensure that they have transcribed your records correctly. I recommend getting your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, your kids' birth certificates if you registered your kids, just to make sure they got the birth dates right, the names are spelled right, all that kind of stuff. Those documents are only valid for 6 months. So if you need to use them for something at some point, you're probably gonna have to order new ones anyway. Right. So I just recommend getting it up front just to verify you've got your information correct. But beyond that, it's not really a reason to have them other than to, you know, they're kind of neat, you know. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting those kinds of things unless you actually need them. The fiscal code as well, you don't need it until you need it. It's just something to get lost, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you're actually going to buy something big in Europe, you're going to open a bank account, you're going to work there, you don't really need it.
Right. And we'll try to cover some of that. And that's great advice, really. So like, don't be overwhelmed by the amount of things that we presented today, because like Brian's saying, you generally don't need those if you're more of a casual visitor in that sense. So what we hope to do down the line is we will try to do one of these forums. And someone had mentioned we should do this every Saturday. And so we definitely can do host more of these on different topics. And we can do one on moving to Italy. We can do one on going to college in Italy. We can do one on buying property in Italy. So that's something that I definitely want to see us do down the road. So we'll be looking for people who have experience in those to kind of help us present and answer questions and stuff like that. But we'd love to be able to give you more information. And as we get to election time about how to vote and all that kind of stuff in different parties and all that, we'll discuss all those as well. So we're trying to make it, like a community thing where we can kind of keep giving you information as you may need it for whatever you might need it for. So I know someone mentioned driver's license, Scott mentioned driver's licenses. I do know in another group I was in, we did discuss driver's licenses, and they were saying that you do have to pass the Italian driving test, and that it is all done in Italian. So if that's something that you're really eager to get, like if you are moving there, we'll definitely cover that in a moving to Italy segment, and kind of how to do that, and like, you know, find somebody who's done it and then it can give you more information. And then let's see, there was one, let's see. Would we need the Italian passport to travel now or in the next few months if you were going there during COVID? Because are they letting citizens in, or is it residents, or is it both? I don't know. I haven't.
You need a valid reason to be there.
Okay.
A tourist is not one of them at the moment.
So if you have property, if you have a sick grandma, those might be reasons to be able to get you in. And then the passport may not be necessary in that scenario at all. Like it may not play a factor if you're because you could be a non-citizen and own property, and then that might be a reason for them to let you in. I don't know.
Right, you need a valid reason, or you need to be a citizen. So you could technically go as a citizen, but you'll need to quarantine. You know, Delta's got the non-quarantine flights, but if other than that, you would need to quarantine even as an Italian citizen. And you want to consider, if you're considering going there right now, just for leisure, depending on where you're going, a lot of stuff is not open. You can't, you know, just wander around. And even if you can, a lot of the stuff is going to be closed.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing. A lot of the Italians that have popped into our groups, or folks that are in these groups but live in Italy, have said that, you know, the locations at this point are kind of depressing and things are closed and people can't go very far. Sometimes you're not able to travel between regions. So like if you're in, you know, whatever, Lazio, you might not be able to go to Tuscany and vice versa. So there's limitations on travel in certain places. Now, obviously by summer that might be different. Just keep an eye out and see what happens there. Another thing too, I would say, if you're planning on doing more things over there, or even just, you know, better understanding of culture and stuff, learning the language is so helpful. Like if you plan to move there and you're going to get a driver's license, you know, those are things that we can control now. And that's kind of why I'm doing this as well. Cause like I have desires to go there and buy a property, but I can't control, you know, COVID right now, and I can't control. So I'm just trying to control things I can control, you know, making this group so that we can talk about stuff like this is great. And then, you know, and also on the side, sort of learning Italian. So, you know, I definitely would welcome everybody to join us in that. My Italian is not great, but we're working on it. And we did put together a conversation group. So feel free to join that. It'll be drop-in weekly, either Tuesday evenings or Saturday mornings, to try to fit in as many people as possible. Come with your bad Italian and we'll all try to make it better, right? So
can you drop the link into the chat maybe?
I certainly can. And it's also on the page. Just give me one moment here.
Is it on the Facebook page?
It is on the Facebook page. It should be under events, and I just posted it today, so it should show up there. I'm just trying to.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, we just figure we can improve ourselves together on that front, and that'll help us down the road with, you know, different scenarios that we might come across, like moving there, going to school there, working in other countries. You know, we can do all that. So, and that's what I said. I'm hoping that once a month we can try to bring you something that you want to know about, and we can talk about it. And even if you're not planning on doing it anytime soon, at least it can help you prep for the future. So I really want to thank Tracy and Giovanni for all the work that they've done on this. I do appreciate their time. And you know, it's so funny. We just kind of threw this group together, and then like, I'm like, hey, could use some help. And people were like, sure, let's do it. I'm like, all right. So, you know, it's just kind of all come together. And, you know, thanks, you know, for everybody on the back end too. I've had a lot of conversation with Brian in the background to kind of get things organized and stuff. So I do appreciate everybody's help. And yeah, it's a community. So let's keep doing it together. And I'm happy to be the push. And then hopefully we can all take it off together, right? So yeah, I appreciate everybody being here today. So I'll let you guys go, I guess, so you can enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for coming. And we hope to, like I said, see you again. I'll keep you guys posted on the Facebook page. Let us know what you want to see in here and what you can contribute, and we'll be happy to put you up. Let's do it. So
thanks, Giovanni and Carly. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you. So all right, cool. Well, And this will be recorded, and then I'll post this soon. So if you did miss anything, you'll be able to see it. My brother's going to do some editing to it to add some stuff. So it might be later this week that it's posted. So just so we know. Okay. So
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Ciao.
Ciao.
Have a great day, guys.